You're brave. Oh, so brave. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Tardy the Party, aka T3P, where this dynamic duo talks about that holy trinity of pop culture, Marvel, DC, and Star Wars. I'm your boy Jsib, and joined by, as always,
I'm KP here.
and we are finally here after 6 weeks. We got the Loki season 2 finale, and boy, oh boy,
doesn't have to watch the show anymore.
Wow,
He so adamantly said last week I couldn't make him, but we had one left, so it was okay.
And you know what?
So now it's over.
And
it's
you know
over.
what, KP? You are correct. You're calling me out on my haterade that I was drinking. I actually really liked how this season finished. I really liked it.
Like the ending? Like the ending, okay.
I really liked the ending. I thought it finished pretty strong. How do I want to talk about I feel like Loki had a very poetic, very somberish ending, but
my feeling is sad.
Yes.
I'm sad.
Which I want to give credit to Marvel too, because they always want to be happy-go-lucky.
Not this.
This
no. Sad.
This final episode really made me want to go back and start all over in this. Actually, the whole thing, because this episode shares the same name as the very first episode of Loki, Glorious Purpose. So this episode has the same name as season 1, episode 1, and it gets referenced in this episode as well. I think this was. I wasn't high on this season for, I would say, 3, maybe 4 episodes. I think it was 3 episodes. But I've been consistent in saying that there has been some definitely love put in this, dedication. It's been like filmed very well. The music has been fucking amazing the whole time. There has been so much good about, like, there's some clear love has been put into this project. I will never take that away from the creators and their effort in it. And I think it actually really, really paid off in this finale. So I really want to go back and restart things over, especially since maybe, apparently, Hiddleston's end, apparently.
Say this,
according to
writers,
recent tweets.
The writers came out and said that they don't plan to do a season 3 at all. They meant to write this as 2 seasons. And then, yes, tweets of basically Tom kind of. It's his character's send off, and.
Which could be tongue in cheek. It could be, we'll get into it in spoilers. So it could be his end, or.
It's more
it could
misdirection.
Yeah,
like
it could be misdirection.
Do.
So you never know. But overall, I think this is like. I think they finished strong, KP. I think they finished strong. It was sad, but I think they finished really strong.
You are right, though. I mean, as I sat there and watched it, I was like, well, I guess now we can't, like, this one, and just with, like, Infinity War, we can't say that everything Marvel does is a happy ending, because this is, like... it's sad, man. Like, dude... Attack on Titan has a not great ending. Sad. Somber. It's perfect, don't get me wrong. I mean... And I've known that ending for 2 years since I read the manga, but it's like I had that, and now I had this, and this is sad, and I'm sad. And it's like these endings are beautiful, but in a horrible way. Sad.
It's sad. About to say it's hard to talk about. I know, like some of you guys feel like I maybe spoiled something, which in a way, somewhat I did, but didn't, because if you actually watch the series, it's still very open ended. What, like, he very much still could be around. It's more just like, yeah, the creators said it was going to be the final season of Loki. Apparently, according to Tom Hiddleston, he says this is the end of his 14-year run, but it's still very, very much open that the character Loki could come back. But without getting into spoilers, it's still complicated. Complicated.
Yeah, it is complicated.
Yeah, like I don't know what else to say because I feel like I'll just like spoil something. So overall, the series finished strong. I think this is some of the better stuff that Marvel has put out, especially in Phase 4. Well, actually, this is Phase 5, technically. Since Phase 4.
Chronologically, it's Phase 4.
Well, yeah.
Oh, it is.
You are right, actually.
I was gonna say, don't argue with me. Something that was said at the very, very end, I was like, oh, well, this clearly takes place before all this other shit that we've already seen.
Yep, you are correct. So yes, this is still Phase 4. So yeah, this is one of the better things they put out in Phase 4. I stand by that. Yeah.
Yeah, your statement's right. They can throw that graphic up and say Phase 5, Loki Season 2, all they want. Bullshit. It's not.
All right, so let's just get into spoilers. I feel like it's so hard to talk about this without getting into it, especially with time travel stuff. Oh, man. AP. All right, we don't want to start at the end. Okay. I'm just gonna try to mark, at least talk about the notes I marked. So obviously, it opens with a shot of the TVA when it explodes.
But he slipped back.
Yeah, he slips back. Timely goes down. We repeat. Timely goes back to Loom, gets destroyed again.
Trying to
basically Obi
like explain it to him faster, and because he thinks it's like, oh, it's just like we're off by this much, and it's like, no, you're off by this much.
Yeah, so Loki asks like Obi, like, what's wrong? We don't have enough time. He basically keeps repeating this process slowly over and over again, going inch back in time. My only question during this is there were certain scenes where Sylvie didn't know what was going on, and I was, for me, she has that one temp pad, or actually he remains temp pad. Hasn't she always been immune to that to this point? But Loki's a special person.
I was say I don't know that it works that way.
So that was just something I noted. I just wanted to point that out. But I would assume it's because Loki is special in the way he can time slip and stuff.
I think that's what it is. Is Loki just has this special ability.
But he goes back to her at McDonald's and asks, like, I don't know who I am, blah, blah, blah. She remembers who he is.
Yeah, but
I'm saying it's inconsistent a little bit. But it's a minor gripe. I'm just pointing it out. I'm not whatever. Just let me point it out. We can move on. It's not a big deal.
I don't really agree there, but I get. Yeah, we can move on.
But he also eventually, like, getting into this, wanting to know, he like asks like Obi, how much time would it take to know everything you know? Obi says decades. Timely chimes in over the shoulder, centuries. So we get centuries later, or after he learns all of the knowledge.
So ridiculous.
Which I put, Loki is clearly becoming the Time Lord. But I also put because I think Kang wants it, or aka He Who Remains wants it. And then I did like the detail of when he starts coming back and testing it, especially when he brings Timely back. They go to put him in the temporal engine, and he's like, "Look, it's safe." He sticks his head in, nothing happens, and then he's like, "Okay, now put your fucking head in." Clearly showing that Loki, at this point that we're even being shown, even though it shows like the next step, we're already clearly at a point that he's been through this time and time again. So he already knows he's been through this conversation before. So this is his like fail-safe of just like, hey, trust me, it's safe. Bang. Go ahead. Go. We're wasting time. Go.
He's the Dark Flash. How long have you been up to this?
Are we allowed to talk about that movie? Because everybody fucking hates
it. I was just making a reference, baby. I just love the fact that, like, if you thought about that, it's like, okay, so he literally technically spent centuries repeatedly slipping back and back and back, and like had to, like, every time he would slip back, you'd have to ask them about something new, and he just sat there and kept learning and learning and learning until again we get to the point where he's like, okay, we've perfected it.
And it continues on throughout the episode too, where we'll get to it, but he gets more like nonchalant and just like almost more like he just doesn't care, but he just is going through the motions because he's been through it so many fucking times.
I just love too how he keeps always saying too, he's like, it's gonna work this time, and Mobius just goes, this time? Just, like, he's catching him, and then it, like, he just at that one part he's just like, what are you doing?
Also another detail for as far as like how he's been through it most of the time, when they send Victor out there for this time, they're like, he makes sure to tell them to like tape the helmet, make sure he like latches the helmet as well. Like he's clearly been through the fucking ringer many times.
Right. But that part was funny because it was like he basically figured out like that's why he was getting ripped into pieces, is because he's just this human going out into radiation, and it's like he needs this thing. He didn't have this thing sealed, and that's like why he was dying.
And I think that's actually the one, I'm pretty sure, where he starts to make it, because this is where we get the conversation. This is my favorite part in the whole episode, where Loki is talking to Timely, and he's like, "You're brave. Oh, so brave." This is where the nonchalantness comes in, where he's been through it so much.
Oh my god.
You're brave.
He's like,
oh,
yes,
so
keep
brave.
going.
Yes, keep
going. Yes, you're brave. You're
one
brave.
step
keep
in
going.
front of the other.
Yeah. He's like, keep going. Yep, you're good. You get it. You got it this time. And and even when he jumps, oh, no. Remember, it's going to roll off the side.
Yep, don't drop it. Don't drop it.
Like,
don't set it down.
Like you said, you can tell he had the attitude. Like he'd even been doing this like many times. And he was like, no, gonna work this time.
I just
oh god, yeah.
For me, I feel like from like a break from the breakdown, I guess. Like I feel like the reason I haven't been so high on the series is this episode finally gave me what I would want out of time travel. Like as far as like cause and effect, just like we've been given that like this series, but it hasn't, I don't know, it doesn't feel as like causational or like, I don't know. It feels like, I don't know if I'm making sense when I'm saying that, but like this episode, it actually finally feels like we get the actual juice of time travel, and I don't know, getting to be able to like discover the actual repercussions of what a character could do. They actually discover it, which I know the whole point of the series, them learning how to actually control the time slipping. Right. I don't know. I feel like they could have played with it more. But either way, fuck it. They're finishing strong. We're back in this fucking shit. Paper cut. So, I had a note that like when Timely came back in safe, after he pushed the green button, sometimes it's a little sticky.
Yeah, he goes, okay. He goes, it didn't work. He's like, just push it again. He's like, sometimes it gets stuck. He's like, yeah.
But he makes it back, and when he gets in, the door finally closed. He's like, pumpkins. And I was like, Yeah, it's fall time. I like pumpkins.
Right.
I
Yeah.
assume there's something in there that I just don't know. Maybe that's like an old time phrase that I don't know. Maybe it's like a thank God type of thing.
Maybe I don't. I have no
I don't
idea.
know.
I didn't even. To be honest, man,
Let us
I
know,
didn't even
chat.
catch.
What does pumpkins
Yeah.
mean?
To be honest, man, I didn't even catch that. So like, that's funny. Yeah, he
But
comes back in. What happens
I don't know.
next?
It's fall time, and he said pumpkins, so I wrote it down. I thought
Yeah.
it was random.
I mean,
I thought
it is
I thought I
random.
thought it was out of nowhere, so maybe it'll become maybe it has nothing to do with anything. Maybe it'll become important later. But
Maybe.
even despite them getting the mission successful, the time loom is starting to overflow. It basically is not implied. It's discovered that, well, if the branches are, multiplying infinitely, the time loom can't accommodate for that. It's gonna
Yeah.
break either way. There's no scientific way to accommodate for infinite.
Right.
Um,
He's like he says the line of like he's like it's like dividing by zero. It's not possible.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we go through multiple. Well, Loki continues to time slip in multiple phases, trying to fix this again, but eventually ends up back to the point where Sylvie tries to kill He Who Remains. Um,
Even that was good because he had to keep doing it over and over and over.
exactly. We're still in this, and it's like it's even hinted at where like he says something where there's a line where he says, "I don't want the throne again." Like that's quoted again, and it's like I wrote down. It's like, well, too bad, bud. Like
Right.
you're about to get it because it's
Yeah.
being set up right now, bud. Like you're getting all these new powers and stuff.
Well,
You're about to
Sylvie
be the
says to
Lord of
him,
Time.
yeah, Sylvie says to him, she's like, "You just want a throne," and he goes, "No, I don't want a throne." And yeah, that comes back.
Then after countless times of him and Sylvie fighting back and forth, He Who Remains finally asks, "How many times have you been through?"
Right.
So we also he also tells us that throughout
Reincarnation, baby.
that, but he also reveals that the reason for Loki's time slipping is that He Who Remains paved the way once again. So he seems somewhat ignorant to what Loki's doing, but at the same time knows that this is still happening. It's like he's smart enough to catch on, but doesn't
yeah.
actually 4D watching him. From
It's like
my opinion,
it's
as
like he
far as the
planned.
words he's saying, yeah. Sorry, continue.
All I was gonna say is like it's like he planned for Loki to be able to do this, and he was banking on the fact that Loki was gonna have to kill Sylvie for it to like work, and so ultimately he was never really gonna die because Loki for Loki in order to preserve what the sacred timeline and the very few branches that they kind of allow to exist, but they still like will end up pruning anyway.
Yep.
It's like he basically just kind of planned on Loki making the hard decision to kill Sylvie, which yeah. That's all I was going to say. That's how I interpreted it was like he didn't really know what Loki was going to do like how when they very first meet him and he's like I know the history of everything that has happened and that will happen, and then he makes that one statement of, "Oh, we just passed the threshold," of how like from that point on he wasn't going to know what was going to happen. So I took it as like he knew that Loki was gonna be able to get this power, but he didn't know how it was gonna end up.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like I really
I don't
like
know if
the
that's how you took it.
no, I agree. It was either he definitely gave him the ultimatum of like you either have to kill Sylvie or let her kill me and just let things time just let everything reset and let the sacred timeline do its thing. Eventually at the end, like that's not the case. I am in it.
That's legitimately what He Who Remains was trying to pull off, was being inevitable.
And then I just loved how it definitely seemed like with this conversation, like He Who Remains was always in control this whole season in a way. This is how it always panned out. But then Loki seems to be a step ahead in this and finally starts to control time, and he threatens
He's
to
just
break the time loom, and this is the first time we have seen He Who Remains step out of his chair and stand up and walk around the table. And to me, I thought that was poignant because Loki even like controlling time and walking over and threatening the formula to change everything is when He Who Remains finally knew, oh shit, like this is not according to plan.
Right.
Because he, like, throughout all of the flashbacks, the multiple times Loki had been going back and forth, He Who Remains been sitting back in his chair. We had over cam views of just like this, and it always ended with "See you soon, see you soon, see you soon," and then finally Loki like controls time for once, have a little conversation, but then he walks over to destroy it. He Who Remains is like, "Oh fuck."
Yeah, it was that gotcha moment where, like, it's the twist of Loki just he stops time himself and he just goes, "What makes you think that this is the first time we've had this conversation?" And then, like you said, then that's when he's like, "Oh shit," and he's like, "Yeah." And then they get into this, and then now he's got to be a philosophizer with it, and he's just like, "Okay, so here's your choices." And then is this when that leads to Loki then time slips back to further points to get opinions from
Yeah,
people?
so that's when he actually
Okay.
goes back to season 1, episode 1, aka Glorious Purpose, and is talking to Mobius because he wants to talk to Mobius, his biggest confidant for advice on what to do.
Right.
And
Before, like, and what's beautiful about that is, like, that's before, like, their relationship even bloomed. So it's not like there's no bias in the answer that he's seeking from Mobius, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah, well, exactly. And I did love how when it starts out, he like calls out like exactly what's gonna happen, and then Mobius is like, "Oh, so you just have the script, huh?"
Yeah, yeah, I love that.
But to your
Yeah.
point, I do love that. Like he went back to the almost like purest form of Mobius in his eyes, I would say, before he would have any knowledge of who Loki is or what
The TVA
his
really was
in
and stuff
his
like that.
yeah, exactly. Like in
Mhm.
his eyes, that is the purest form of Mobius because he wouldn't even have any like history of who Loki is, other like past what he's been told from TVA, but like not who this Loki is. So
Right.
I yeah, I really like that as far as Mobius is good. God damn it. We'll get there. Fuck. But he gets the advice from Mobius, of course. He also during that conversation Mobius alludes to the time with Renslayer and how Renslayer pruned like a young boy. Eventually she also, I think in this conversation, alluded to how she worked her way all up to judge
Yeah.
of the TVA. I did like, okay, still in this, but it's the end of the scene when they finally shook hands and Mobius turned to spaghetti. It was also like kept this episode getting sadder and sadder. But it was all worth it. It was good. Um, so he goes back to the end of the last episode and talks to Sylvia alone. She basically figures out that it's like, oh, you have to kill me to stop me from killing He Who Remains, to stop all of this from happening. Instead, pulls a pulls a big dick move. Pulls a big dick move.
Okay. Okay.
He goes back to the point where it would be Victor Timely walking out on the bridge to put the boom device or whatever, and shoot the bang. But instead, Loki goes out. KP, when I say dope ass transition to a costume, I mean chef's kiss is what I mean.
It was
Walking
really
out
cool.
there, he's getting the which also super satisfying. Very in the beginning when you think Timely's gonna die for the first time, and he like and he takes it for the first time. Also great, but Loki basically does the same thing. Going out that, and it slowly starts shedding his clothes, his TVA clothes off, and he fully just slowly morphs into his classic Loki costume. Slowly grows the horns out super long. Our
So
boy,
awesome.
our boy, basically sacrifices himself so he doesn't have to kill Sylvie.
Yes, pretty much.
Actually, he
Because that's,
sacrifices not only that, but all of his friendships.
I was gonna say, he sacrifices everything, so then no one has to die.
He goes in, he does the deal. Bang, there's like warp. He slowly walks up the steps, gets in there. He's like tangling all the timelines. Slowly walks all of like the beautiful like the art. Fuck, we talked about it in fucking Ahsoka. Gold and all slowly breaks off and slowly forms a golden throne for Loki as he sits down and grab. Oh, I'm actually kind of skipping a little because the time actually like breaks up.
It's fine.
The
He
spaghettis.
use he basically uses his magic to like control how time exploded the multiverse, but like he takes the timeline strings
Yeah.
out in that area and he like he uses his magic to grasp them and to like keep them maintained and can like yeah. So
And you see his
anyways,
green energy like pulsing through all the timelines. And as he's like
right.
grabbing multiple timelines, he's like walking through this like rip. That was referring. Walks through it. He disappears. Everybody in the TVA sees him like disappear. They don't know where he goes. But he continues to walk forward, like up these steps. Eventually, this like golden throne forms. He sits down with all these like golden strands as he's like pulling together. And eventually, as he hits it, like there's a big bang,
Mm.
which is very Loki-esque as far as no Ragnarok. Beginning of the new world, the beginning of Asgard once again, and finally, Loki actually has a grand purpose, a greater. Um, I loved it. I loved like
Yeah.
for me, for somebody who didn't necessarily
He
like
makes
hero
he makes
Loki,
like
I
he
loved
makes the
this.
timeline string. I love too how they made like the timeline strings then formed into like what looked like the world tree from Asgard is
Yeah,
like how it formed, and I thought that was so cool and like a cool callback. Like again, he didn't want a throne, but now he's ended up having one, and then so be it that what he is the ruler of looks like a world tree. So it's like almost like it's a whole Asgard for him and stuff like that.
um, I did love that. For me, I was so. We'll talk about this in a minute, I think. But so when it zoomed out, it looked like he was the new also temporal loom in a weird way, but I think it may not potentially be that.
I mean, that's kind of how I took it.
That's how I took it initially, but as things went on, I was like, maybe I don't know. We'll get to it in a second. But we
I think that he is because it's very weird how like his cape that he had was like branching out as timelines.
Yeah, that was. Oh, yeah. Thank you. So that was also cool. While he was
yeah,
like pulling all the timelines, it almost looked like his cape had timelines attached to it as
right.
well that were coming in.
I was gonna say, it's almost like he is literally like a living purpose to like ensure these timelines are attached to him and they exist. It's my guess.
God of stories.
Yes, he becomes the god of stories.
It does pan back to the TVA. Miss Minutes is back.
They're fixing her, or
So I don't know
they're
what's
bringing her
going on
back.
there. It happened in
I think
OB introduces her, so I'm almost wondering if in this universe
uh,
OB creates her. I don't know.
that, or like they're like reprogrammed, like she's being reprogrammed completely from the ground up. As how I kind of took it.
Or OB is still Garth. Hashtag that theory is still.
Okay.
So they also mention like a Kang variant anomaly happening on an adjacent 616 universe, which they had pictures of, which shows that it was Quantum Mania Kang. Like it had the.
And the reason they would have called so that title. All right. I think the reason they call it the 616 adjacent is because, as we saw at the very end of Loki season 1 on the last episode, it begins where like the camera like pans out and shows like the two like universes, if you will, that have a sacred timeline going in a circle around them. But there's two, and then
Where they show the black holes.
it shows the black holes, and there's a ring around those black holes, right?
Yep.
And they pan out from one, and then they pan into the other.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So to me, that would be that those two are adjacent to each other.
Yep.
So those are both 616 universes. So I was just thinking that when in the TVA, when they're like, oh, there's a He Who Remains variant on 616 adjacent, but it seems like they took care of it themselves, it would make sense that TVA is probably from the one that we panned into. That's our story with Loki. And they're talking about this one over here that's right next to them. So they would refer to that as 616 adjacent. Or then, if there is a TVA over on this one or whoever, they would refer to this other one as they're the 616 adjacent to them. So that's just how I took that. And I was just saying how that He Who Remains variant is Kang the Conqueror from Quantumania, which then basically told us how all this stuff with Loki basically immediately happened. Like seasons 1 and 2 are go in tandem together, kind of like Guardians 1 and 2.
Yep.
So they technically all happen like right after Endgame, and then with how this all ends, where Loki becomes God of Stories and he preserves all the timelines, and he basically allows the multiverse to actually exist, is why we get the events that happen in Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, um, and what else? Oh my God. Well, our post credit scene in the Marvels. I feel like I'm missing one. I don't know if I am, but I feel like I'm missing one.
Yeah, that's where like I feel like
Yeah.
To me,
That's
like
how
with the
I'm
black holes
interpreting this.
thing, it's like I don't know. With the adjacent 616, that could either be like a whole other dimension or it could just be like a branch timeline. So to me, now after seeing the Marvel, no spoilers, but to me that black hole is something else than what you described, is what I will say. If that makes sense
Okay.
to you. Just barring off
Okay.
of the plot of the Marvels and how it ended, that black hole could actually be something else than what you're. If you catch my drift, you could be right. You could be right, Bill, with your theory. But for me, especially since Marvels was last night, and now we're talking about all of this stuff over this week in one night. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where. But you are correct though, as far as like in Loki's time span, this has been it's much shorter than what it actually feels like compared to the rest of the MCU timeline we've been feeling, because he's just after escaping from first Avengers, after he's captured, right?
Yeah.
When he gets into Loki. I don't know. Can't talk about that too much. Can't talk about that. If you want to know what happens in the Marvels, watch our Marvel spoiler review.
Yeah, that's true. And the one I was forgetting is like really just the multiverse stuff they kind of touched on in Quantumania itself. That's what I was kind of forgetting to say there. But that's really all I meant by it all. So we have our multiverse.
We have the multiverse. All right, so back to where we were. We get to a point where Mobius decides he wants to leave the TVA and go back to his home. Back on the 616, adjacent 6.
I guess.
So I do like this moment. Like Sylvia eventually like shows up with Mobius. But I liked how Mobius just in the talk with B15 before was just saying how he just wanted to just experience time for once instead of controlling it and manipulating it. He just actually wanted to feel it and experience time, which also is somewhat sad when Sylvie shows up, because it almost just seems like he isn't even gonna like, depending how time works, I don't know if like Mobius or Don in that universe disappeared or if he still exists in a weird way, but I feel like he would have disappeared, so I would hope he would fit himself back into his original timeline eventually, instead of just watching Watcher depressingly. Like just
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, that part was a little weird, yeah.
Like this was a very somber ending, I feel like, for a Marvel show, which I appreciated. I appreciated very much. But also, like, spoilers, Mobius may return to a certain project. I'm not gonna say which project.
Well, that's theoried anyway.
I'll say it's theories. Like... It's theories. It's not guaranteed. But hey, for you that are super sad like me, hope everybody.
We might get more Owen Wilson.
After that scene, we cut to an OB who gets like basically a new box of TVA guides, which are yellow instead of orange. There. Then cuts to a young Timely who does not get a TVA guide. Then we finally cut to a Renslayer who is obviously at the end of time. Well, in the void at the end of time, correctly. And then I don't know if you caught this in the background. There's a pyramid, which I thought maybe be a reference to Ramatut.
Could have been.
So maybe she gets in touch with the early interpretation of Kang at his earliest form, and or it's just an Easter egg. Maybe it's just an Easter egg.
I think it's just an Easter egg, because I think the big purple monster is coming to kill her.
Nah, she'll control him.
Yeah, dude, yeah.
You know she'll be back. There's no way that's the end.
I just kind of noticed that she woke up laying on a grassed over, like,
the always on
top you know,
She's basically. It seemed like she was in
like
what
it was
would be
this
the remains of the TVA at the end of time.
right. Exactly. That's how I took that. Yeah, because
So
she's like on the same like flooring. Don't matter. She gets her eaten. Sorry for the yawn.
Oh, actually, sorry. That's when we actually go back to Mobius watching his kids and stuff. Sorry, I got ahead of my notes.
Oh well.
So now you just experience this time, but we got Loki. I think
One last
so.
shot.
I think this is a little theory of mine because He Who Remains exists at the end of time. Correct? That's where he stayed.
Right.
With
Apparently.
Loki and his tree of life and it being green. Depending on how things play out, Loki could be actually at like quote unquote the beginning of time.
Because it's an Ouroboros.
Yeah, exactly. So it's almost like Loki
Which
is
is
like
why the sacred timeline was in a ring too.
yeah, exactly. It's like he is like the beginning, and He Who Remains, or well, it would just be He Who Remains, would be almost like the end. If he
No,
still
I agree,
exists,
like-
even if he still exists in this weird time frame, we never saw after Loki took over where He Who Remains would be if he actually still exists. But in theory, He Who Remains could be at the end of time, and Loki could be at the beginning of time. Like Loki's the creation of stuff. He Who Remains is the decation, or the decaying factor of life.
No, that's good theory.
But
I feel like I don't know. I feel like I hope that maybe at the end of it all, one day, when all these actors are way too fucking old anyway, we'll get one shot of like I don't know. Maybe we'll get like the Kang that becomes He Who Remains. He'll be there to destroy that Loki and what that Loki has created. And again, it will just perpetually go as an Ouroboros.
that would be really sick. I have hope, actually.
I would imagine that's the idea. I don't know. Maybe not. Probably not. But whatever.
But yeah, since we're finally in spoilers, I kind of somewhat spoiled it that this could be the end of Tom Hiddleston's Loki. But I feel like it's pretty open. So many avenues could still go.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he's obviously going to return for Secret War. I'm sorry, he's not done. Like,
I hope not.
he's not done. But even though the fact that I said that, I didn't even fucking mean it in the non-spoilers. So fuck you guys. I didn't spoil shit.
I didn't mean it. I hope
gotta
he's
be
not
done.
done.
He's got.
I mean, I hope that all the old OGs like come back for Secret Wars. Just again, like just for that movie.
That's why with all the reports that are like, oh, they're
I was talking
times
about
are
that last
desperate. They're
night.
going back for the OG characters. Like, they were going back for the OG characters anyway. Like, Secret Wars is coming up. Whether they're doing like good, medium, bad, like they were getting them anyway. Like,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's time for them to show up. And then with the end of this, I like if they're really gonna pivot from, which I hope he's innocent. If he is innocent, I hope they don't pivot. But if they do have to hardcore pivot, they could turn Kang Dynasty into like maybe an X-Men versus Avengers, which leads into Secret War, which is sometimes what Secret Wars is. Depending on what you want.
Jean Grey versus Captain Marvel.
Let's do a Batman v Superman and then turn it into fucking Secret Wars. But let's turn it into an Avengers X-Men scale. Give it to me.
Cool. Give it up.
Yes. Overall, okay. Sorry. What's your rating of Loki season finale? What do you give it, Kate?
Sad. Sad out of 10.
Sad out of 10.
I kind of gotta give it like a 7.5 for me because I don't know. The whole like he can use his magic to then save everything. I was like, what the fuck? I don't know.
He's a god.
Yeah, I know. I just part of that. I was just like, yeah, I feel like this could have been a little longer, but I don't know how they really would have explained it other than the fact that it's like, oh, he's just a god and he has magic and he can do this and
he can time slip.
and he can time slip and he figured out how to intertwine all of it, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I that's just for me personally. I mean, that's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I think I'm a little higher on you for once, actually, for a Marvel property. Odd. But not much higher. I think I'll give it honestly, I wanted to give it an 8 because I feel like it's
I mean, I kind of wanted to do that too, but I just kind of can't. I don't know. I'm very jaded because I really wanted this variant of Loki to interact with Thor, but never gonna get that now. Maybe.
Yeah,
so.
You know what? I'm not gonna lie. That does kind of, and it was kind of teased in interviews with the writers and stuff. But there could be. There's still hope. There's still hope. We got time. We got time still. I refuse to believe this is last we're gonna see a Tom Hiddleston. I refuse.
I really hope that's correct.
I think that'll do it. So, what did you guys think of the Loki season finale? What did you think of the season as a whole? Tom Hiddleston done? Is he gone? No. Just like Chris Evans, RDJ, baby. They come back, mother.
Probably get ScarJo back too. If we get those two back, we'll probably get Scarlet.
I mean, you better. Why not? But anyway, what did you guys think? Please let us know. If you like what you saw, please give it a like, subscribe, ring the notification bell if you want to know every time we post a new video. KP, where can the people find you?
Every Tuesday and Thursday, you can come hang out and chat with me at twitch.tv KevinNation_. God, I hate that so much. And also on X at PolitesK. And on Instagram at KevMPolitis. You can slide my DMs. They're always open. Where can they find you, Jsib?
Spicy.
And where can they slide in your DMs?
They can slide into my DM. At Twitter, aka X gon' give it to you, at Jsib20, and of course on twitch.tv/. I am also guaranteed to go on live Tuesdays and Thursdays, also with KP. Maybe do some bonus streams on the other days.
Yeah, that's my plan.
Subscribe and find out when we go live. But until next time, we appreciate you all for watching. See ya.